Let's embrace innovative volunteerism.
Welcome to the discussion today, which is going to be on the geopolitics of just transition in Africa. And this is a topic that is currently taking place in the continent and the world. I'll be right back.
Solutions to these challenges, innovative and volunteerism, food security and youth unemployment, climate actions and selfless solutions. These are things that we need to engage for. When I lift up my eyes and see people.
The geopolitics of energy in Africa is a very important subject, and that's what we're going to discuss today. I believe across the continent, you wake up today wherever you are, definitely struggle to find fuel to cook. And most people, as we know, across the continent are using charcoal as they cut down trees, not because they do it intentionally, just because they don't have an alternative. We have over 900 million citizens who depend on this unclean cooking. And on top of that, there are people who don't have light in their homes, 620 million African citizens without light. So the storyline across the continent is that of impoverishment, is that of energy poverty. And yet on top of this, over 257 million Africans went to bed last night with their stomach aching of hunger. So when you juxtapose all these realities within the context of the changing climate, which is manifesting itself in droughts in the Horn of Africa, over 600 million livestock have been lost, not to talk of the lives of people that have been plunged into suffering. Over 22 million people have been displaced and plunged into suffering as a result of these droughts. When you put cyclones like Cyclone Idai and Cyclone Kenneth that happened in 2019 and the current events across the entire African continent today, then Africa is actually not only on the spotlight, but is feeling the heat. Yes, it is feeling the heat. And amidst all this, the just transition discussion in Africa cannot be about energy alone, because we know that across the entire world, emissions result from energy usage up to about 73%. But in the continent of Africa, Africa only emits between 2 to 4% of emissions. That means Africa is a net sink region. And therefore, the issues of Africa cannot only be looked through the lens of energy. They must be looked through the lens of one word: socioeconomics. People need to put food on the table and more money in more pockets. That is the direction in which the just transition debate across the continent needs to happen. But let's put things in perspective. We are discussing these issues at a time in which the world is under turmoil. The turmoil of fuel prices, the turmoil of food crises, the turmoil of financial crises. These three F's constitute the reality of now. The Ukraine-Russian war have resulted into this. And I mean, before the Ukraine-Russian war, we had COVID-19 that plunged over 50 million jobs lost in the continent, that affected the continent and ramshackled millions of people, plunging them into suffering. Well, today, this debate then centers around this word socioeconomics. Because let's face it, the continent have importers and exporters of oil. The importation of oil into the continent have actually cost the continent over 19 billion, resulting in inflation of 12.2%. Yes, there are exporters. They've not actually benefited a lot. Why? And the question will be, why is it that African countries that are exporters of oil have not benefited? Refineries are not in these countries, and they've not built the skill and requisite skill and put the infrastructure in place. So the point I want to argue today is that we must be able to put the narrative around Africa exploiting natural gas straight. Why? If you look across the entire African continent, Africa has 65% of renewable, the best renewable resource in the entire world, but it's only able to tap 1%. It's only been able to utilize 1% of that. It means that the decentralization of solar into the entire continent has not happened. And therefore, four things need to be done here. We need to understand that when you talk about gas, natural gas, it's only in about 50% of countries in the continent, and only 20% have the best natural gas. That's what the statistics are telling us. We need to also understand that natural gas, despite the fact that countries have it, to actually build a plant, to be able to extract that, one plant costs $25 billion US. And the International Energy Agency estimates that $25 billion US injected in renewable energy, in renewable resources over the next 10 years will ensure that the over 620 million energy-impoverished Africans will have electricity. So why will one be expending $25 billion US to build one gas plant when it will not even be able to reach the energy-impoverished citizens of the continent? That's one. Two, you have a system, a continent with 365 days of sunshine, a continent with geothermal potential, a continent with wind potential and hydro potential. Therefore, we need not to start to think of energy mix. Because if you look at the distribution of energy, if you were to mix solar with wind, with geothermal, with hydro, the continent will have enough energy to be able to survive. And that takes me now to the third point, which is power pool. Power pool means if you look at the reality, wind potential of the continent is mostly in Southern African region. The hydro is mostly in Central African region. When you look at the geothermal, it's mostly in Eastern African, especially in the Reef region in the continent. And then when you look at solar, it's universal. So it means that if we are to drive the power pool understanding of energy, countries that have more energy can then be able to distribute to other countries. If you take Southern African region that taps energy from wind, they can be able to offset any deficit they have by tapping from the hydro that is in Central Africa or geothermal in East Africa. And in this way, we can then be able to have energy distributed across the continent. And this is where the fourth point comes in, which is Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We need to use the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to move beyond just goods and services, but to start thinking, how do we also trade energy using the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? And lastly, which is quite very, very important, we cannot be able to address the challenges of the continent, especially in a continent where 84% of the population is in rural areas and have no electricity. Grid electricity cannot be able to reach them. We need off-grid and minigrid, which is clean energy solution, which is renewable energy to be able to reach these people. And so focusing on gas, whereby using gas to feed into the grid, knowing that it will not be able to reach these people, is actually a mismatch and is what I call a false narrative. It's a false narrative, yes. At the same time, if we were to decentralize minigrid, solar power energy, solar solutions, renewable energy to these communities, we will lift millions of people from the bottom and actually ensure that they empower. But mostly, an important aspect is that energy should go beyond just lighting homes. It should also go to add value. Because at the end of the day, adding value, imagine a mother who is using solar power, a simple solar dryer, to add value to her products and sell it. She'll put money in the pocket and can be able even to buy the light bulbs that are needed. This way will be driving transformational development. And it boils down to what I said earlier. Socio-economic transformation is the best way to be able to drive Africa just transition. Because when mothers put food on the table, when they put more money in more pockets, then we will be able to empower people socio-economically and transform Africa. Thank you.